You know, usually when we look at the systems of the world, like whether that's medical diagnostics or software engineering or even corporate restructuring, we expect this certain level of mechanical precision.
Right, yeah. Like, you run a test, you find the bug, and you fix it.
Exactly. You isolate the broken bone on the x-ray and you just apply the fix. It's binary, right? Broken or not broken.
Functioning or failing. And, it's deeply comforting to the human mind to categorize the world that way.
Oh, for sure.
We just crave that visibility. When something is wrong, we want to point a finger at a jagged white line on an x-ray and say, there is the enemy, now let's defeat it.
But the moment you pivot away from like a broken arm and step into the realm of the human nervous system or chronic psychological exhaustion, that reliable x-ray machine suddenly shorts out.
Oh, completely. It's useless.
Yeah, you are no longer looking at clean lines. You're navigating a landscape that is just profoundly murky, contradictory, and honestly stubbornly resistant to quick fixes.
The phrase diagnostic muddy waters doesn't even begin to cover it. The human mind in a state of prolonged stress is basically a labyrinth where the walls just keep shifting.
Yeah.
And what makes it so incredibly complex is that the conscious mind, the part of you that, solves math problems and sends emails, is often completely disconnected from the biological reality of the body it's actually sitting in.
Right. Which brings us directly to you, the person listening to this deep dive right now.
Yeah.
Let's just put our cards on the table here.
Let's do it.
If you are tuning into this, you possess a very specific kind of architecture in your mind. You are a learner.
Yes. A consumer of information.
Exactly. Your brain is this high-performance engine that is constantly running, analyzing, optimizing, and just trying to pull signal out of the noise. And typically our mission here is to feed that engine.
We take the dense research, the complex white papers, and extract the vital data for you.
Right, but today, we are throwing a wrench into the gears.
We are actively asking that high-performance engine to idle, which, for a certain type of personality, is actually a pretty terrifying request.
Oh, it's terrifying. Because today, we aren't dissecting a corporate case study. We are doing something fundamentally different.
Yeah, we have a really unique piece of source material today.
We do. It's titled The Village Where the Stars Came to Rest. Now, on a surface level, you might glance at this text and think you've accidentally stumbled into a children's book.
It definitely presents itself as a bedtime story.
Yeah. But the mission of this deep dive is to prove to you that this is not just a fairy tale. We're going to use a technique called story talking to show that this is actually an astonishingly precise masterclass in sensory architecture and psychological engineering.
Disguised as fiction.
Disguised as fiction.
Yeah.
So we are going to story talk our way through this text, following the narrative journey step by step.
Right, because it's meticulously designed, like syllable by syllable, to hack the reader's waking anxieties.
We want to uncover the exact mechanical, biological, and psychological levers the author is pulling here to force a state of profound relaxation.
It actively bypasses the analytical, defensive mechanisms of the waking brain.
And it opens a direct line of communication with the autonomic nervous system. We're going to extract these insights on how we process exhaustion, how we manipulate memory, and why we all just need to rest. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start right at the threshold of the story.
Yeah, because the opening of this text does not start with once upon a time.
Yeah.
It doesn't even introduce a protagonist.
No world building at all.
None. It starts with direct, authoritative physical instructions aimed squarely at you, the reader. It says, tonight, you do not need to hurry. You do not need to think about tomorrow. You do not need to remember everything that happened today.
And then it demands physical compliance.
Right. It says, let your shoulders relax, let your hands become soft, unclench your jaw. And I look at that and I think, well, why delay the narrative? Why not build a magical world first?
Because building a world requires the reader to voluntarily step into it. And honestly, a chronically stressed reader is biologically incapable of taking that step.
Oh, wow. Biologically incapable.
Yeah. The author understands a foundational law of human biology. You cannot logic your way out of a physiological stress response.
Right. You can't just think yourself calm.
Exactly. Consider the state of the average person picking up this text. They've spent 10, 12, maybe 16 hours navigating the friction of modern life.
Right.
Their sympathetic nervous system, which is the network responsible for the fight, flight, or freeze response, is just totally flooded with cortisol and adrenaline.
It's basically an evolutionary mechanism operating in a modern environment. Like your brain thinks that angry email from your boss is a saber-toothed tiger waiting in the bushes.
That is the exact biological reality. The body doesn't differentiate between the existential threat of a predator and the social threat of a looming deadline.
It's all just danger to the brain.
Yes. And when that sympathetic nervous system is dominant, your body physically armors itself. You elevate your shoulders to protect your neck.
Right, getting ready for a hit.
Exactly. You clench your jaw, specifically the masseter muscle, which is actually one of the strongest muscles in the human body, in anticipation of physical conflict. Your hands tighten up.
So if the text simply began describing a magical village while you were in this state, your brain would just reject the imagery entirely, right?
Absolutely. It would flag the story as irrelevant data getting in the way of your survival.
It makes me think this opening is like a reverse alarm clock.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like instead of a sudden jolt of sound that immediately armors you for the day and floods you with adrenaline, this text systematically dismantles your daytime defenses piece by piece, starting with the heaviest armor.
And that physical dismantling is a biological hack targeting the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, that's a huge one in relaxation,
Yeah.
right?
It's the main player. The vagus nerve is cranial nerve 10. It's this massive superhighway of information that wanders all the way from your brainstem down through your neck into your chest, and it literally wraps around your internal organs.
Oh, okay.
It's the primary control center for the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode.
So by explicitly commanding the reader to unclench the jaw and soften the hands.
The author is forcing the reader to manually override the sympathetic state.
Right.
When those specific muscles relax, mechanical sensors send a signal up the vagus nerve to the brain that basically says, the threat has passed, we are safe. The story simply cannot start until the vagus nerve confirms safety.
That's fascinating. But it's not just the commands themselves, is it? It's the way the commands are delivered.
The pacing.
Yeah, the linguistic structures shift dramatically. The text slows down into these fragmented rhythmic beats. It says, take a slow, gentle breath in and slowly breathe out. Again, breathe in and breathe out.
So what we are looking at here is the application of entrainment.
Entrainment, break that down for me.
In physics, entrainment is the process where two interacting oscillating systems sync up and assume the same period. Like if you put several pendulum clocks on the same wall, eventually they will all swing in perfect unison.
Oh, really? I've seen videos of that. It's weirdly mesmerizing.
Right. And biological entrainment works very similarly. The author is using short, heavily punctuated sentences to act as a metronome.
Ah, like.
When you read or listen to a cadence that mimics a resting heart rate, which is around 60 beats per minute, your own respiratory sinus arrhythmia begins to match that external rhythm.
So the text is literally pacing your cardiovascular system.
It establishes a new biological baseline before a single plot point even occurs.
But I want to push back on one piece of this opening.
Okay, go for it.
The text tells the reader, you do not need to remember everything that happened today. Now, on a physical level, I understand relaxing the jaw, but how does being told to forget actually induce relaxation? Like, does the brain really burn that much energy holding onto a to-do list?
Oh, absolutely. Memory consolidation is actually one of the most metabolically expensive processes the brain undertakes.
Wait, really? Just remembering things burns that much energy?
Yes. Throughout the day, your working memory is juggling dozens of open loops, conversations, tasks, anxieties, and the brain perceives an open loop as an unresolved threat.
So it's constantly guarding those loops.
Exactly. So by having an authoritative voice explicitly grant permission to drop the cognitive load, to just leave loops open, the text shuts down the brain's executive functioning center.
It's relieving the prefrontal cortex of its duty to manage the timeline of your life.
Precisely.
Okay, so your jaw is unclenched, your heart rate is synced to the punctuation, and your prefrontal cortex has been given the night off. Now the text finally places you in an environment.
But notice it doesn't drop you into the village immediately.
Right. It places you on a quiet country road late at night. The sky is dark and clear, and the text zeroes in on these incredibly isolated details.
Very sparse.
Yeah, like the smooth road beneath your feet, the gentle breeze rustling invisible leaves, the call of a single owl and a moon playing hide-and-seek behind clouds. Why use this sparse transition zone?
Because a sudden shift from the chaos of reality to a complex fantasy setting would just be too jarring. The author is building what we could call a sensory terrarium.
A sensory terrarium.
Yeah. Think about how scattered your attention becomes under stress. You're hypervigilant, scanning the environment for 100 different variables.
Just waiting for the next thing to go wrong.
Right. So the road sequence narrows the aperture of your attention. By providing slow-moving, highly specific environmental details, one owl, one moon, the tactile sensation of a smooth road, the narrative gives the conscious mind just enough non-threatening data to focus on.
It occupies the sensory processing center so they don't wander back to real-world anxieties.
Exactly, but it keeps the stimulus low enough to avoid triggering a new dopamine or adrenaline spike.
And the text says, you keep walking, one quiet step, then another. That phrasing really grounds the listener in forward, unhurried momentum.
Which naturally leads to the discovery of the destination.
Yes, so you see warm golden lights in the distance, nestled in a valley. There are no busy roads, no sirens, no traffic. Just narrow stone paths and quiet gardens.
A total departure from the modern world.
And there's this wooden sign. Welcome to the Starhaven, the village where the stars come to rest. From a psychological standpoint, what's the significance of a village in a valley?
We are entering the architecture of the safe harbor, which actually has deep roots in evolutionary psychology.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, humans evolved as prey on the open savanna. So our ancestors sought out specific geographical formations for survival places that offered what environmental psychologists call prospect and refuge.
Prospect and refuge.
Yeah, a valley surrounded by gentle hills provides refuge from harsh weather and predators, while still allowing the inhabitant to see any approaching danger from a safe distance. That's the prospect part.
So the village of Starhaven is basically the ultimate distillation of this genetic craving for an enclosed, protected space.
It is. It's the Shire. It's the secluded cabin in the woods. It's a biological sigh of relief for your brain.
And the narrative does something very deliberate with the visual description here, too. It doesn't paint with broad strokes. It gives us highly specific, almost quaint variations.
Like the houses.
Yeah, it says one cottage has blue shutters, another has a red door, one has flowers growing around the windows, another has a small wooden porch. It feels almost overly simplistic, right? Like a painting in a children's dentist office.
But that simplicity is highly calculated.
Really?
Yes. The visual cortex, which processes imagery, needs to be pacified. If the text described a monolithic, uniform architecture like, say, a sterile, modern city block, it wouldn't engage the imagination at all.
The brain would just tune it out.
Exactly. But by offering these charming, distinct variations, the blue shutters versus the red door, it gives the mind tiny, anchoring details to latch onto.
It forces you to actively paint the picture in your mind's eye.
And here's the trick. When you are busy visualizing the texture of a wooden porch or the color of a flower box, you are using the exact same neural pathways required to visualize tomorrow's stressful meeting.
Oh, wow. You physically cannot do both simultaneously.
Exactly. The red door overbreaks the anxiety.
But there is a massive paradox the text introduces right at this moment, which I found fascinating.
Oh, the familiarity aspect.
Yeah. The narrator explicitly states, you have never seen this village before. And yet, something about it feels familiar, as though you have been here in a dream. How does a text successfully convince a reader that a totally alien environment is actually a forgotten memory?
It achieves this by bypassing the hippocampus's requirement for spatial mapping.
Spatial mapping.
Yeah. In the real world, discovering a new environment is exhausting. If I drop you in a foreign city, your brain has to work furiously to build a mental map, assess threats, find resources.
Like you're constantly calculating where you are.
Discovery takes a massive amount of cognitive energy. So, by instructing the reader that this place already exists within their own subconscious dreamscape, the text removes the friction of navigation.
It reframes the experience, not as an exploration, but as a return.
Precisely. You don't have to learn the layout because your bones already know it. You are returning to a baseline of belonging.
But then the text adds this surreal element to this familiar landscape. The stone fountain in the center of the village sounds like gentle rain, which, is a classic white noise anchor.
Very soothing.
But when you look up, the sky is fundamentally wrong.
The central visual hook of the village.
Yes. The stars are unnaturally low. They aren't fixed in the stratosphere, they are floating just above the rooftops, slowly descending behind the hills. Now, I have to question this choice.
Why is that?
Because usually when we look up at a brilliant night sky, It triggers what we call the overview effect, that profound sense of awe, but also a creeping existential terror.
Right, the feeling of being very, very small.
Exactly. The universe is infinite, cold, and indifferent, and we are microscopically insignificant. Does ripping the stars out of the heavens and putting them on the rooftops actually change that psychology?
It doesn't just change it, it entirely inverts the psychological relationship between the human and the cosmos.
Inverts it how?
Well, the overview effect, a term coined by Frank White to describe the cognitive shift reported by astronauts, relies on the confrontation with infinite scale.
Right.
When you look at the Milky Way, you are staring into a void of burning gas and dead space millions of light years deep. It is magnificent, but it's deeply alienating. What the author does here is an act of cosmic domestication.
Cosmic domestication, I love that phrase.
By bringing the stars down to hover over the chimneys, the narrative scales the infinite universe down to a human, manageable level.
The stars cease to be distant nuclear furnaces and become gentle local companions.
Exactly. They are resting in the valley with you. This eradicates the overwhelming vastness of the unknown. It takes the ultimate symbol of human insignificance, the night sky, and turns it into a cozy, intimate blanket.
So the universe is no longer a cold void watching you. It's a tired traveler sharing your safe harbor.
It shrinks the scale of reality down to something you can actually wrap your arms around.
And speaking of wrapping your arms around things, this brings us to the sensory core of the story. You're standing by this fountain, watching the stars, and you hear the chime of a soft bell. And you follow it to a building called the Night Bakery.
This is where the story shifts from visual stabilization to deep, visceral, emotional manipulation.
You step through the door of this bakery, and the text hits you with a wall of scent. Fresh bread, cinnamon, honey, warm vanilla.
All very specific choices.
And behind a wooden counter stands an elderly woman, the baker. She tells you, in Starhaven, night is when we bake, and she brings out a tray of star biscuits, these tiny golden honey-flavored pastries that she bakes specifically to feed the stars when they come down to rest.
We really need to spend some time on the biology of this specific moment, because olfactory storytelling, the use of smell in a narrative, is the most potent tool a writer has to bypass logical defenses.
More potent than sight or sound.
Absolutely. Every other sense you possess, sight, hearing, touch, taste, routes its signals through the thalamus.
Okay, the thalamus.
The thalamus acts like a brain switchboard. It receives the sensory data, analyzes it, and decides where to send it for processing. This takes time, and it allows the conscious mind to filter the experience.
But smell is different, right?
Smell is ancient. From an evolutionary perspective, early organisms needed to detect chemical changes in their environment, like a predator or a food source, instantly, before they even possessed a complex brain to think about it.
So it bypasses the switchboard.
Entirely. The olfactory nerve completely bypasses the thalamus. It wires directly into the olfactory bulb, which has a direct, unmediated highway to the amygdala, the emotion center, and the hippocampus, the memory center.
Which totally explains why you can catch a whiff of, like, a specific brand of sunscreen, and before you even consciously recognize the smell, your brain has already transported you to a beach vacation you took 15 years ago.
Exactly. Your body feels the memory before your mind can even name the scent.
That is the exact mechanism. So when the text forces you to simulate the smells of fresh bread, vanilla, cinnamon, and honey, it's firing up that direct highway to the amygdala.
And the author didn't choose these scents randomly. They didn't choose the smell of a pine forest or a salty ocean breeze.
Right, because those are exploratory scents. They belong on the road.
For the interior safe space, the author deployed universal, deeply ingrained cultural triggers for maternal care and caloric security.
Caloric security, meaning the smell of bread tells the primitive brain that it isn't going to starve tonight.
Right. Throughout human history, the baking of bread has been the central anchor of agrarian communities. The communal oven was literally the source of life.
So the smell of baking yeast and flour signals to the nervous system that resources are abundant. The community is providing.
Furthermore, vanilla and cinnamon are spices historically associated with warmth, holidays, domestic peace, and positive family gatherings.
Combine this chemical cocktail of scents with the archetype of the elderly woman baker-like, the ultimate non-threatening, nurturing figure, and the narrative has constructed an impenetrable fortress of psychological safety.
You are cared for, and there is absolutely no transaction required.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's a tiny detail that almost gets lost. The baker doesn't just hand you a pastry.
No, she doesn't.
She pours a cup of warm milk with honey. And the narrative dictates exactly how you interact with it. It says, you hold the cup in both hands. I paused when I read that. Why not just say you drink the milk? Why specify holding it in both hands?
Because the author understands embodied cognition.
Embodied cognition.
It's the theory that our physical actions profoundly shape our psychological states. When you visualize wrapping both of your hands around a warm mug, you are neutralizing your body's ability to act on the world.
Because if both hands are occupied with the cup, you can't be holding a weapon.
You can't be typing on a keyboard, you can't be scrolling through a smartphone. You have adopted a physical posture of complete surrender to comfort.
It literally forces a cessation of productivity.
Yes, and it goes even deeper into thermal psychology. There's a fascinating study from 2008 by researchers Williams and Bard, published in Science.
I think I've heard of this one.
They had participants briefly hold either a hot cup of coffee or a cup of iced coffee in an elevator before evaluating a stranger's personality.
And what happened?
The people who held the hot coffee overwhelmingly judged the stranger as having a warmer, more generous, and more trustworthy personality.
That is wild.
The physical sensation of thermal warmth directly triggers the neurochemical pathways associated with social trust and emotional warmth.
So by having the listener simulate the feeling of a warm cup in both hands, the text physically induces a state of deep trust in the baker, the village, and the narrative itself.
You are physically anchoring the feeling of safety, which fully lowers the emotional drawbridge.
Because it's right after this moment of thermal comfort that the narrative shifts from just soothing you to actually confronting your internal state. You're sitting there holding this warm cup, and the baker looks at you and simply says, "You look tired."
A profound moment of unmasking.
It really is. And the text says that you realize she is right, but it clarifies the feeling. It says, it is a comfortable kind of tired, the kind that comes after a long journey.
Right.
You ask her why everyone gets a room in this village, and she replies, because sometimes people travel a very long way before they realize they need to rest. And as a listener, the story tells you that you weren't actually searching for anything. You just needed a place to finally stop.
This is where we pivot away from sensory manipulation and enter philosophical validation. We have to view this through the lens of the learner persona we identified earlier.
Right, the highly driven, intellectually curious, relentless optimizer.
Exactly. In modern culture, specifically within knowledge work and high achievement circles, exhaustion is heavily codified. It is either weaponized as a badge of honor, the whole hustle culture mentality where lack of sleep equates to dedication, or it goes entirely unrecognized because we disguise it as passion.
Wait, elaborate on that. Disguising exhaustion as passion. Because I think a lot of our listeners just felt a very uncomfortable twinge of recognition.
Well, the human mind is incredibly adept at rationalizing its own suffering if the cultural framework rewards it. You tell yourself, I'm not burned out, I'm just deeply fascinated by this new project.
Or I'm not running on empty, I'm just exploring my potential.
Exactly. We reframe our desperate, frantic motion as intellectual curiosity. But beneath the surface, the nervous system is screaming for a reprieve.
We become entirely disconnected from our own internal gauges. It's like driving a car with a piece of electrical tape over the check engine light.
That is a perfect analogy. We measure our right to exist by our output. If we aren't producing, analyzing, or fixing, we feel this deep existential guilt.
I think it traces back to the very roots of modern industrial capitalism.
It does. It's Max Weber's Protestant work ethic applied to the digital age. We view the human body as an instrument of production.
And what the baker represents in this narrative is a radical, almost subversive counter-philosophy.
She looks at the traveler and identifies the exhaustion not as a failure and not as a heroic sacrifice, but simply as a natural consequence of a long journey.
The phrase, people travel a very long way before they realize they need to rest, validates the unconscious burden the reader has been carrying.
She offers radical permission to stop the perpetual motion machine. She doesn't ask for a status report.
She doesn't ask what you accomplished on the road today to justify a bed in her village.
No, she simply observes that you are weary and grants you the right to lay the burden down. It induces a profound emotional release.
It tells the listener, your exhaustion is valid, it is seen, and it is okay to simply stop without having a strategic reason for doing so.
And you do stop.
You follow the soft glow of lanterns up a gentle hill, leaving the bakery behind. You find a simple, warm room tucked under an old, sheltering tree. You lie down, watch the low stars descend outside the window, and you finally fall into a deep, heavy sleep.
And if this were just a standard relaxation script, it would end right there. You are asleep, mission accomplished.
But the architecture of this text has another layer, because right in the middle of this peaceful sleep, the narrative initiates a magical midnight awakening.
The descent into the subconscious dream space.
You wake up to the chime of that soft bell again. You step outside your room, and the entire village is transformed. It is glowing. Hundreds of these tiny stars are floating at waist height, drifting through the stone paths like glowing fireflies.
It's very surreal.
You wander down to the central fountain, sit on the stone edge, and you find yourself face to face with a single tiny star hovering over the water. And you strike up a conversation with it. Now, if I'm trying to wind down, why am I suddenly engaging in a midnight dialogue with a celestial body?
Because physical rest is only half of the restorative equation, the narrative has successfully relaxed your muscles and pacified your sensory environment.
Right.
Now, it must address the cognitive and emotional burnout that caused the tension in the first place. The talking star operates as an emotional mirror for the reader.
The star asks why you are awake, noting that everyone who comes to Starhaven is exhausted. You ask the star, do you get tired too? And the star gives this incredibly poignant answer.
It really does.
It says, of course, we travel almost the whole world, we see many things. It admits that it sees sad things, terrible things, but then it delivers the thematic thesis of the entire text. But the beautiful things always remind us why we keep traveling.
This represents a massive cognitive reframing of the purpose of observation. Let's look at the psychology of emotional burnout. Okay?
When an individual reaches a state of severe fatigue or depression, the brain's natural negativity bias becomes hyperactive.
Meaning, we only focus on the bad stuff.
Evolutionarily, we are wired to notice threats, like the rustling grass that might hide a tiger. In a modern context, a burned-out brain scans the world and only sees the sad things, endless news cycles of tragedy, the personal failures, the sheer crushing weight of global problems.
The darkness just feels infinite.
The star acknowledges that darkness, though. It doesn't engage in toxic positivity.
Right, it doesn't say, oh, the universe is perfect and nothing hurts. It validates the tragedy by admitting it sees the sad things, but it refuses to let the sadness be the final word.
Exactly. The star introduces the concept of glimmers.
Glimmers, what are those?
In polyvagal theory, which was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges and expanded by Deb Dana, we talk a lot about triggers. Triggers are stimuli that plunge our nervous system into a state of fight, flight, or dorsal vagal shutdown, which feels like depression or dissociation.
Sure, we all know our triggers. But a glimmer is the exact biological opposite. It is a micro moment of safety, connection, or beauty that cues the nervous system to move into ventral vagal regulation, a state of social engagement, safety, and calm.
So the star is basically a cosmic curator of glimmers. Because look at the list of beautiful things it claims keep it traveling. It doesn't list grand historical triumphs.
No.
It doesn't say it's fueled by massive human achievements or monumental shifts in peace. The star lists tiny, almost microscopic moments of human grace, kindness, friendship, quiet mornings, warm homes, people who forgive, people who begin again, people who sit beside someone who is lonely.
That specificity is vital. When we are overwhelmed by the macro problems of the world, we feel entirely powerless. The star shifts the focus from the macro to the micro.
It suggests that the antidote to existential despair is not to conquer the world's suffering, but to fiercely, intentionally observe and catalog the quiet moments of redemption that happened in the margin. I picture the star as this weary cosmic commuter. It orbits the Earth, looking down at the absolute worst of humanity: wars, famine, cruelty. And yet, amidst all that agonizing noise, it actively chooses to focus its attention on a single person, choosing to sit on a bench next to someone who is crying.
It catalogs that microscopic glimmer of empathy.
And it uses it as the fuel to keep shining. What an incredible framework to hand to a listener who feels beaten down by the daily news cycle.
It redefines resilience. Resilience isn't about ignoring the pain. It is about anchoring your survival to the observation of everyday gentleness.
The star comes to Starhaven not just to physically rest its light, but to remember why it shines at all.
After this profound realization, the star gently tells you that it is your turn to return to rest. You go back to your room under the tree, close your eyes, and the narrative pulls you down into a dream within the dream.
We are entering the deepest layer of the psychological architecture.
The inception layer, if you will.
Yeah, you find yourself walking through a dark, pine-scented forest. The branches are filled with those tiny resting stars, casting this silvery light on the path. You follow them until you reach the banks of a moonlit river. The water is dark, steady, and entirely calm.
And the narrative delivers a direct command to your subconscious.
It says, you do not have to carry everything forever. You are instructed to take your worries, your anxieties, your open loops, turn them into leaves, place them on the surface of the river, and simply watch the water carry them away into the darkness.
What is happening here is an astonishingly elegant integration of clinical psychology into fictional narrative.
Unpack that for me.
The author has taken a foundational exercise from acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, developed by Dr. Stephen Hayes, and smuggled it into the reader's mind, wrapped in the guise of a forest dream.
Okay, I am familiar with ACT in a clinical setting. It's about changing how we relate to our pain rather than trying to eradicate it. But I have always found the specific visualization exercises, like the leaves on a stream technique, to feel a little contrived or forced when sitting on a therapist's couch.
A lot of people do.
So why does it actually work here, in the middle of a story about glowing firefly stars, when it might feel cliché in a sterile office?
It works entirely because of psychological distance and lowered defenses. To understand why, we have to look at the concept of cognitive fusion.
Cognitive fusion.
In our normal waking lives, we are deeply fused with our thoughts. Language is a powerful evolutionary tool. If a hunter-gatherer yelled lion, the tribe reacted biologically as if the lion was already biting them. The word became the reality.
Right.
Today, if you think, I'm going to fail this project, your brain reacts as if the failure is a concrete present reality. You are fused to the thought.
The thought and the thinker become one entity.
Exactly. The goal of the Leaves on a Stream exercise is cognitive diffusion. It trains you to step back and observe the thought as an object separate from yourself.
So I'm having the thought that I will fail.
Yes. You place the thought on a leaf and you watch it float away. You do not try to stop the leaf, analyze the leaf, or jump into the river to drown the leaf. You just observe its passing.
But you're right, in a brightly lit therapist's office,
Yeah.
the analytical brain often resists. It says, this is silly. I'm an adult imagining a leaf. This isn't solving my impending bankruptcy.
The learner brain rebels against the metaphor.
Precisely. But the narrative has spent the last half hour systematically dismantling that rebellious learner brain. It lowered your heart rate, bathed your amygdala in the scent of vanilla, validated your exhaustion, and put you to sleep in a magical village.
By embedding this clinical exercise inside a dream, within a dream, inside of fiction, the author creates layers of psychological insulation.
The analytical brain is dormant.
The subconscious mind accepts the metaphor without resistance because the environment of the narrative has already established that magic and metaphor are the physics of this world.
The friction is just gone. And there's a specific line during this river sequence that really stopped me in my tracks. As you watch the leaves float away, the text says, some things can be left behind, some things can be forgiven, some things can simply be allowed to disappear.
That's a powerful statement.
In the context of our hyper-optimized modern culture, that idea feels dangerously radical. We're conditioned to believe that every problem is a puzzle that must be solved. If there is an open loop, our worth is tied to closing it.
You are bringing up the Zeigarnik effect.
Oh, what's that?
Named after psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who demonstrated that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. Our brains naturally latch onto the unresolved.
And modern productivity culture weaponizes this effect, doesn't it?
Totally. It tells us that an unresolved conflict, an unanswered email, or an unachieved goal is a moral failure. We must optimize, strategize, and conquer.
And the river simply says, no, you don't have to solve it.
It is the ultimate antidote to the optimization trap. The text is teaching the listener that not every anxiety demands a resolution. Some problems cannot be solved tonight, and some cannot be solved ever. The healthiest, most mature psychological response is sometimes the intentional release of the demand for a solution. You allow the thought to exist, and you allow it to drift out of sight. You let the river carry it, acknowledging that the river does not rush, and it does not worry. It simply moves.
You watch the leaves go, one worry gone, another gone. The text assures you, you do not need to hold them. You do not need to solve them tonight. It is an incredibly liberating permission slip that unburdens the soul.
And that feeling of weightlessness leads us gently into the final sequence of the text.
The descent into true rest, which we can call the afterglow.
The consolidation phase of the narrative.
You wake up from the forest dream, but you are still within the dream state of the village. You find yourself standing on a grassy hill overlooking Starhaven. You watch in silence as all the tiny stars slowly descend from the night sky, drifting down to return to their resting places on the rooftops and chimneys.
And the baker appears one last time.
Right. She appears beside you. You look at her and ask a very natural question. Will I remember this place? And she gives a fascinating answer. She smiles and says, perhaps, and if I don't, you ask. She replies, then perhaps. You will simply feel a little more peaceful tomorrow.
That interaction is brilliant. It is a fail-safe mechanism designed to remove the final vestige of performance anxiety.
Because even when trying to relax, the learner brain looks for a grade. We think, did I do the meditation correctly? Did I achieve mindfulness? Will I remember the profound lesson of the talking stars so I can apply it to my quarterly review?
We constantly try to turn rest into an actionable metric.
And the baker gracefully strips that metric away. She grants you the ultimate permission to forget the text itself.
The narrative is telling the reader that the healing, the physiological reset of the vagus nerve, and the cognitive diffusion of the river dream do not require conscious memorization to be effective.
The benefit is autonomic.
It happens in the deep architecture of the brain. You don't need to carry the memory of the village into your waking life like a souvenir to prove you were there. You will just wake up with a lingering, unexplained sense of peace.
It releases you from the burden of taking notes. So what does this all mean? You return to your quiet room. You lie back in bed. The text says your thoughts float away like distant stars. And then the narrative time skips.
To the morning.
The morning finally arrives in Starhaven. The village wakes up. The baker opens her shop. The birds begin to sing, and the rested stars lift off from the rooftops to resume their travels across the sky. The world starts turning again.
But for you, the traveler.
The narrator steps in and explicitly commands you to stay exactly where you are. It says, you have earned this rest. Let morning wait. Let the world wait. And then it delivers the final crushing blow to the hustle culture mentality. You do not need to accomplish anything. You are allowed to simply exist.
You are allowed to simply exist. In those 7 words, the author introduces the philosophy of unconditional existence.
Break that down for me. How does unconditional existence contrast with our daily reality?
Well, in our modern socioeconomic framework, human existence is highly conditional. From the moment we enter the educational system, our worth is tethered to our output.
Grades, test scores, degrees.
Salaries, promotions, key performance indicators. We justify taking up space on this planet by proving our usefulness, our intelligence, and our ability to solve complex problems. We are terrified of being unproductive because, subconsciously, we equate a lack of utility with a lack of right to exist.
If I am not doing, I am not worthy.
Exactly. What this narrative accomplishes in its final moments is the total severing of that tether. It strips away the conditional framework. It tells the listener that their fundamental right to occupy space, to breathe, and to rest is not contingent on what they achieved yesterday, and it is not mortgaged against what they promise to do tomorrow.
It is such a stark contrast to typical storytelling. Think about the hero's journey.
Oh, absolutely.
Usually the protagonist rests so they can wake up refreshed, grab their sword, and go slay the dragon. A relaxation script usually ends with a rousing, now open your eyes, stretch your arms, and attack the day with new energy.
But this story actively rejects the call to action.
The machinery of the world starts turning, the birds are singing, the stars are working, but you are explicitly told to ignore it. The world's momentum is not your responsibility. You are safe in the dark, safe in the quiet, and you are not required to be a cog in the machine right now.
It is a profound act of grace. It separates the listener's inherent worth from the world's relentless demand for momentum. It offers an unapologetic permission to completely disconnect.
It really is a masterpiece of design. When we look back at the entire trajectory we just navigated, it is astonishing. You start on that physical country road, using the mechanics of entrainment to slow the heart rate and hack the vagus nerve.
You arrive in the safe harbor, occupying the visual cortex with quaint architecture.
You step into the bakery, leveraging the evolutionary wiring of the olfactory bulb to trigger maternal safety. You receive emotional validation for your hidden exhaustion.
You use the talking star to cognitively reframe your negativity bias by focusing on microglimmers.
You wade into the subconscious river to practice ACT therapy and cognitive diffusion. And finally, you are granted the philosophical release of unconditional existence. It is not just a bedtime story. It is a surgical strike on modern anxiety.
It moves flawlessly from the physical to the sensory to the emotional to the psychological, and finally rests in the philosophical.
So, bringing this all back to reality, back to you, the listener, You are out there managing incredibly dense information, navigating back-to-back meetings, balancing personal crises with professional demands, and constantly feeding that relentless curiosity of yours. What is the actionable takeaway here? It can't just be listen to an audiobook when you're stressed.
No, the lesson is far more demanding than that. The lesson is that you must become the architect of your own internal Starhaven.
Your own Starhaven.
Yes. The world we live in, driven by algorithms, capitalism, and constant connectivity, will never voluntarily stop demanding things from you. The emails will never cease. The crises will never pause. If you wait for the world to give you permission to rest, you will simply run the engine until it seizes.
You have to build the sanctuary yourself.
You must actively construct a mental and physical architecture where your mind is allowed to unspool. This requires setting ruthless boundaries.
Like what?
You need a space, whether it is a literal quiet room, a 20-minute walk without your phone, or just 5 minutes of deep, intentional breathing while holding a warm cup of coffee in both hands, where the rules of productivity are strictly forbidden.
Right.
You need a space where you practice letting open loops float away like leaves on a stream. And most importantly, you need to recognize that your soul's exhaustion requires validation, not just another shot of espresso.
You have to step up and be the baker for your own mind. You have to look in the mirror and say, you look tired. You've traveled a very long way. You can lay it down here.
That requires a massive perspective shift, but it is the only way to survive the modern era without losing your humanity.
I love that. And to bring our deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought based on this text. Something for your learner brain to gently mull over as you transition back into your day. There is a quiet, beautiful line near the very end of the story. The text notes that as the traveler sleeps, the stars remain hovering over the rooftops, keeping watch over the valley. But it clarifies their presence. It says they do this not because anyone is in danger, but because sometimes a little light makes the darkness feel softer.
It's a gorgeous sentiment. It implies that light doesn't exist just to conquer the dark or to reveal threats, but simply to provide comfort.
It changes the utility of light. So as you unplug from this conversation and step back into your fast-paced, high-stakes life, back into the complex, diagnostic, muddy waters of the waking world, I want you to ask yourself a question. What is the single gentle light you can keep burning in your own life to make the dark, overwhelming moments of information overload feel just a little bit softer?
That's a great question to reflect on.
Is it a glimmer of unexpected kindness you witnessed on your commute? Is it a quiet morning routine you fiercely protect? Is it the memory of a friend sitting beside you when you were lonely? Find that light. Don't use it to blind yourself to reality, but let it make the darkness soft. And remember, when the X-ray machine of your life is broken, when the image is murky and nothing makes sense, you do not have to solve it tonight. It is okay to simply exist. Until next time, keep exploring, but please don't forget to rest.
Imagine a piece of literature where the author's ultimate goal, like their sole metric of success, is that you never actually finish reading.
Right. It is completely wild to think about.
Yeah. A story engineered from the very first syllable to basically dismantle your attention span and make you lose consciousness before the final page.
It completely upends the traditional rules of writing. I mean, normally an author wants to grip your attention and just refuse to let go.
Oh, for sure. They want you on the edge of your seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, they are actively trying to negotiate a hostage release with your waking brain.
Which makes today's source material such a brilliant paradox. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today we are examining a complete final script for a sleep story, and it is titled The Lighthouse That Remembered Dreams.
And we really have a great mission for this deep dive.
We do. We aren't just going to recap a bedtime tale for you. We are going to unpack the actual architecture of sleep storytelling.
Yeah, because it is a highly structured thing.
Right. We are going to explore how this specific script uses pacing, deliberate sensory imagery, and some surprisingly heavy emotional themes to biologically and psychologically hack the human mind.
Lulling it right into a state of deep rest. Because honestly, it truly is an architectural feat.
It really is.
Sleep storytelling isn't just, ambient white noise or some plotless drone. It is a highly structured psychological tool that is just cloaked in a narrative.
Yeah, cloaked is the perfect word for it. Every single word is chosen to trigger a specific physiological response. So to understand how that works, I want you to picture the opening scene the script lays out. You are immediately placed in a quiet night. The world has finally become still.
Which is such a powerful starting point.
It is. You are standing beside an ocean. The waves are moving gently beneath the moonlight. The wind is whispering through the grass, and you are walking down a narrow, earthen path toward a dark cliff.
The setting does a ton of heavy lifting before the plot even begins.
Oh, absolutely.
It immediately isolates you. There are no traffic sounds, no crowded rooms, no smartphones pinging, just the natural rhythmic elements of an empty coast.
And standing there on that coast is our protagonist, Clara. She is completely alone. And the script, it doesn't waste time on complex action sequences or intricate backstory at all.
No, it zooms right in.
Yeah, it explicitly focuses on very slow, gentle movements. There is a lighthouse on the cliff, and its golden light is sweeping across the dark sea.
And then there is that repetition.
Yes. The script repeats this phrase once, twice, again, and again. And underlying that sweeping light is the periodic resonant ringing of the lighthouse bell dong.
That sweeping light and that bell, they are basically the foundational pillars of the entire cognitive hack.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when I first read that opening, I just kept visualizing a hypnotist's swinging pendulum.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Or maybe like a really slow metronome sitting on a piano. The golden light sweeps, the bell rings. Doo. It really feels like the script is actively trying to physically slow down your internal clock by providing these recurring sensory anchors.
What's fascinating here is the clinical psychology behind that exact mechanism. That is what makes this so incredibly effective.
Right, because it's not just pretty words.
Not at all.
Right.
When we try to calm a dysregulated nervous system in a therapeutic setting, we use grounding techniques. Throughout your day, your brain is in a state of hypervigilance.
Constantly on edge.
Yeah, it is tracking a million unpredictable variables, emails, conversations, the car braking suddenly in front of you. That keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, highly engaged.
So the brain is basically just stuck in high gear.
Precisely. So by introducing this repetitive golden light and the slow, resonant dong of the bell, the story creates a perfectly enclosed, predictable environment.
A safe zone, kind of.
Right. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, specifically stimulating the vagus nerve. It forces the brain to shift away from the chaotic, unpredictable anxieties of the waking world and synchronize with a simple pattern.
Wow.
You literally cannot maintain a high heart rate or rapid breathing if your brain is fully locked onto the slow, predictable rhythm of those imaginary waves.
It acts as a gentle, rhythmic tether. I love that. It keeps you from floating back up into your own stressful, spiraling thoughts.
Sick.
But, you know, that soothing, rhythmic exterior is essentially just the lobby of this story. Because once Clara steps through the old wooden door of this lighthouse and climbs the endless spiral staircase, the narrative introduces a metaphor that is surprisingly profound.
It definitely takes a darker, a more melancholic turn than you might expect from something that is meant to help you relax.
It really does. I was a bit shocked. Clara reaches the top of the stairs and enters the lantern room. But the walls aren't covered in maps or nautical gear like you would expect. They are lined with hundreds of glowing glass bottles. Blue, green, silver, golden light shining from within them. And she meets the keeper of the lighthouse, this old man with a lantern named Elias.
And when Clara asks what is inside the bottles, Elias tells her they are dreams.
Specifically, the dreams people have forgotten.
And he doesn't shy away from explaining the harsh reality of why those dreams were forgotten either.
Man, that part hit incredibly hard. Elias says people forget their dreams because life becomes loud, they become busy, and they become afraid.
It is so poignant.
It is. And then Clara finds her own bottle, a glowing golden one, and touching it unlocks a deeply repressed memory.
Right, the memory of her grandmother.
Yeah, she is 8 years old, standing on a beach with her grandmother, drawing a lighthouse in the sand. And her grandmother tells her the lighthouse shines for someone who needs to find their way home.
Such a beautiful image.
But then we learn that Clara stopped dreaming, stopped writing, and stopped wondering entirely after her grandmother died. She just became practical, dizzy, and responsible.
She locked that gentle, vulnerable part of herself away in order to survive the acute grief. And then, just the mundane busyness of adulthood.
Okay, but this is where I have to push back a little on the strategy here.
Let's hear it.
A sleep story centered on repressed grief, the death of a beloved grandmother, and the crushing, mundane weight of practical adulthood. Isn't that way too heavy?
It sounds like it would be.
Right, I mean, if you are lying in bed trying to get to sleep, do you really want to be confronting the death of your own childhood wonder?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, on the surface, it seems entirely counterintuitive. Why not just tell a story about a happy bunny in a meadow, right?
Exactly. Give me the happy bunny.
But if we look at the cognitive behavioral principles of sleep anxiety, it actually makes perfect sense. Ignoring daily anxieties or pretending sadness doesn't exist, that rarely works for a racing mind.
Because it just pushes it down.
Right. If you tell an insomniac, don't be stressed, their brain immediately highlights the stress.
The classic don't think of a pink elephant problem. If you try to force yourself not to think about your impending deadline, that deadline is all you can see.
Yes. What this script does is far more sophisticated. It acknowledges the gentle melancholy we all feel late at night.
That quiet 2 a.m. feeling?
Right. When the house is quiet and the distractions of the day are gone, that is when the grief, the regret, and the feeling of missing out on life all creep in.
Yeah, they really do.
The story validates your quiet nighttime anxieties. But it doesn't just leave them hanging out in the open. It safely contains them.
Oh, it puts them in the glass bottle.
Exactly that. The heavy feelings are acknowledged, but they are physically contained within beautiful glowing glass bottles in a safe, magical room guarded by a wise old keeper.
That is so clever.
It takes the abstract terror of existential adult dread and makes it manageable, beautiful, and safe to observe from a distance.
It is a brilliant reframing. It is basically whispering to you, yes, you are sad, you are tired, you have lost things, but look how beautifully we can store that sadness for the night. But merely storing anxiety isn't enough to actually induce sleep. You also have to actively release physical tension. And that brings us to the most crucial mechanism in the script, which is modeled for the listener through a new character named Daniel.
This is a huge shift. This is the turning point where the narrative moves from emotional containment to active physical release.
Yeah, because Clara isn't alone with Elias for long. We hear slow footsteps on the spiral staircase. Step, step, step.
Very methodical.
Right. A man named Daniel appears in the doorway. He is wearing a wet coat, he has a pale face, and these deeply tired eyes, and he is desperate. He wants to steal Clara's golden dream to open what he calls the door to yesterday.
He really represents a person entirely trapped in the sunk cost fallacy of their own past.
He wants one more day with someone he lost, his sister Anna. He has spent his whole adult life trying to force his way backward to bring her back.
It is heartbreaking.
It is, but Elias gently tells him that he cannot go back. And Clara realizes Daniel doesn't need to steal her dream, he needs to remember his own.
Which is a huge breakthrough for him.
Yeah, and when he finally stops trying to force a solution, a memory returns to him. He remembers Anna laughing, running through a sunny field with a brilliant red kite.
The great visual.
Clara tells him Anna doesn't need him to stay trapped in the past. She tells him he needs to live. Daniel touches a red bottle, briefly sees Anna on the beach, and she echoes that command. She tells him to go live.
The realization is powerful, but the script knows that cognitive realization isn't enough to release deep tension.
Right, knowing you should relax doesn't actually make you relax.
Exactly. So it revisits him a few moments later to show the physical manifestation of letting go.
And this is the sequence that completely blew my mind. Here is where it gets really interesting. Later in the story, Clara visits Daniel again in this sort of in-between dream space.
Right.
He is sitting by an open window, looking much older, and he is physically clutching that red kite from his memory. He remembered Anna, and he got stuck again, just holding onto the memory of her with a white-knuckle grip.
Still trapped.
Yeah. Clara tells him to honor her by living. And Daniel finally opens his hands. He physically lets go of the red kite. He watches it fly out the window up into the sky until it is just a tiny red dot. And only then does his face soften into peace.
It is a vivid visual metaphor for surrender.
It really is. When I was reading this, I couldn't help but compare that emotional release to the physical act of progressive muscle relaxation.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when you purposefully tense up your shoulders, clench your jaw, make tight fists, and then you intentionally release them, feeling the tension drain out of your muscles.
That is exactly what it is doing.
Daniel has had this death grip on his grief. He is emotionally and physically clenched. Releasing that kite is the narrative equivalent of unclenching your jaw. He unclenches his mind so his body can finally rest.
It is an incredibly potent biological cue embedded right in the middle of a bedtime story. I mean, think about what is keeping someone awake at 2 a.m.
It is Daniel's problem.
Exactly. The listener is gripping tightly to a conversation they had 5 years ago, or a mistake they made at work, or the profound grief of losing someone. They are lying in the dark, physically tense, holding on to their own red kites.
Wow, yeah. We were all just sitting in the dark, holding on to our red kites, refusing to open our hands.
And Elias makes the thematic core of this explicit when Clara asks what the lighthouse really does. He says the lighthouse isn't really about sleeping at all, it is about waking up.
Waking up to life.
Yes. It reminds people to wake up to the life that have been waiting for them all along. By having you watch Daniel let go of his tension, it subliminally grants your own brain permission to put down the heavy baggage of the day.
It totally gives you permission to mentally clock out. But, okay, here is where the script pulls off its wildest maneuver.
It really takes a turn here.
It does. Once Daniel's emotional tension is released, and you are presumably feeling a bit lighter, the story doesn't just neatly wrap up. It doesn't follow a standard 3-act structure to a logical conclusion.
Not at all.
Instead, the mythology of the lighthouse drastically expands. The whole narrative fractures and shifts from a linear, logical progression into something incredibly surreal and disjointed.
The strict boundaries of reality just completely dissolve.
They evaporate. Elias passes his golden lantern to Clara, and she becomes the new keeper. Suddenly, a 10-year-old girl named Lily arrives at the door, mourning her mother.
Out of nowhere.
Right. And through a series of bizarre reveals, we find out Lily is actually Clara's future granddaughter. The script tells us the lighthouse doesn't exist inside normal time at all. It exists somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow.
It abandons the chronological rules of daytime reality entirely.
Then, to save the fading light of the lighthouse, Clara has to visit something called the First Dream behind a dark door, where she finds a young version of Elias. She learns that Elias's own daughter dreamed up the lighthouse to begin with.
It's so layered.
So layered. The next second, Clara is suddenly transported to a village bookstore called The Dreaming Lantern, run by a woman named Margaret. And Clara realizes she has to sit down and write the very book we are currently experiencing to keep the magic alive.
It is a full-on paradox.
Yeah. And I have to ask about this time loops. Future granddaughters. The creating the creator. Doesn't this kind of complex Inception-style plotting stimulate the brain way too much for a sleep story?
This raises an important question, actually, because if you were fully awake, yes, it would absolutely stimulate you.
Right, I'd be trying to map it all out on a whiteboard.
Exactly. But this points to the neurobiology of how the brain actually transitions into sleep. Think about the hypnagogic state, that liminal space, right on the very edge of falling asleep.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever paid attention to your thoughts in that moment, you will notice they stop making logical sense.
Oh, definitely. You will be thinking about paying your electric bill, and suddenly you are convinced that a giant tortoise needs to sign the check, and your brain doesn't even question it.
That is dream logic in action. When we are awake, our prefrontal cortex is in charge. It demands linear progression. A causes B, which causes C.
Making sense of the world.
Right. But to enter REM sleep, that logical, analytical part of the brain has to power down, handing the reins over to the amygdala and the hippocampus, which process abstract emotions and memories.
Oh, wow.
So by intentionally blurring the edges of reality, by introducing future granddaughters and paradoxical time loops, the script is artificially mimicking the onset of the REM sleep state.
So it is feeding the brain the exact kind of nonsense it expects to see right before it shuts off.
It is forcing a cognitive decoupling. If the story remains entirely logical, your prefrontal cortex stays engaged. It tries to predict the next plot point, solve the mystery, or analyze the character motivation.
It stays awake doing a job.
Exactly. But when time stops making sense, your analytical brain gets overwhelmed. It essentially says, I cannot track this chronological puzzle anymore. I surrender. And that surrender is the physiological prerequisite for falling asleep.
It is like the script is holding your hand and slowly walking you across the border from daytime reality into a dream state, using the plot as a diversion tactic.
That is a great way to describe it.
And this complete dissolution of logic sets up the script's final and arguably most vital trick, the moment where the story literally steps out of the pages and directly into your bedroom.
The breaking of the fourth wall.
Yes. Clara realizes that her childhood dream wasn't to live in isolation in a lighthouse. Her dream was to tell stories that make lonely people feel less alone.
Which is beautiful.
It is. Her golden dreamlight fades into the ocean because she realizes dreams are meant to be shared, not hoarded in glass bottles. And right at that moment of beautiful narrative resolution, the script pivots completely.
It is a massive shift.
It stops telling Clara's story. It abandons the third-person narrative altogether.
It transforms from storytelling to active, direct guidance.
Yeah, the text actually reads, and perhaps one day you may see it too. Perhaps on a quiet night when the world becomes still. You will close your eyes. You will hear the sound of waves.
It is so direct.
It starts speaking directly to you, the listener. It commands you to let your thoughts become quiet, to listen to the imaginary waves. It feels exactly like the gentle fade out at the end of a really great song.
Oh, I love that comparison.
The realization hits you that the story we just read is the story Clara wrote in that bookstore to help people sleep. The narrator stops being a distant storyteller and suddenly becomes a soothing guide sitting right next to your bed.
The mechanics of that shift in pronouns are just brilliant. Moving from the third-person narrative about Clara and Daniel to the second-person, you, is a profound psychological transfer of energy.
How so?
Well, for 15 minutes, the listener has watched Clara and Daniel find peace, resolve their deep-seated grief, and let go of their physical tension. By suddenly shifting to you, the script takes all of that accumulated peace and effectively transfers it directly onto the listener.
It is like handing the listener the golden lantern.
It is. It says, they found their peace, they let go of their kites, and now it is your turn. It also uses incredibly suggestive clinical language in this final phase.
Like what?
Phrases like, let your thoughts become quiet, or the day slowly drifts away. It is no longer suggesting relaxation through metaphor. It is directly instructing your nervous system to shut down, using the safe, contained environment of the lighthouse as the backdrop.
And it ends by bringing back that recurring, grounding motif from the very beginning. The final bell rings. Dong. The golden light passes over the ocean, the waves become softer, and the guide tells you that your dreams are finally finding their way home.
It is so cohesive.
It is an incredibly hypnotic, sensory-rich package that brings everything full circle.
It really proves that sleep storytelling isn't just about being boring. It is about taking profound human experiences, grief, hope, memory, the feeling of being overwhelmed by life, and using narrative resolution to trigger physical relaxation.
It is functional art.
Exactly. It creates a space where you feel seen, validated, and ultimately safe enough to finally close your eyes.
It gives you a physical place to put your anxieties so you don't have to carry them into your sleep. And that actually brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with.
I'd love to hear it.
Something to mull over the next time you are lying awake in the dark, struggling to shut your brain off. The script suggests that when we forget our dreams, they don't die. They wait for us in this beautiful lighthouse guarded by an old keeper.
Right.
So what if the very act of going to sleep isn't just a biological necessity? What if it isn't just about resting our tired physical bodies, but taking a necessary nightly journey?
A journey to where?
A journey to visit the parts of ourselves, our old hopes and forgotten wonder, that we are simply too busy, too practical, or too afraid to listen to during the loud hours of the day.
That is a fascinating perspective.
Maybe we aren't just turning our brains off. Maybe we are going back to check on the things we have left behind.
A lighthouse waiting just beyond the darkness of the conscious mind.
Exactly. Think about that the next time you close your eyes and let the imaginary waves roll in. What forgotten dream is waiting for you in a glowing glass bottle? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been great.
It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking the architecture of sleep storytelling with you. We hope you will join us for our next exploration, where we will dive into another fascinating corner of the things that shape our world.
Until next time.
Until then, just remember, somewhere out there, a golden light is sweeping across the water. Once, twice, again, and again. Sleep well.